There's something interesting about the way we think about attraction. Most people believe it lies on the surface. They think it's in the way you dress, the symmetry of your face, the way you walk into a room. And yes, those things can catch attention. But attention is not attraction. Attention is fleeting. Attraction is something deeper. It's something you feel before you can explain it. It's the reason some people walk into a room and everything changes, not because they demand it, but because they embody something rare. And the truth is, the kind of attraction that lasts, the kind that pulls people toward you without effort, is built on habits. Small, consistent behaviors that shape how you show up in the world. Not once, not sometimes, but every single day. The first habit is this: they listen in a world that only wants to talk. We live in a time where everyone is trying to be heard. Everyone is trying to prove something, to show something, to say something louder than the next person. And in the middle of all that noise, the rarest thing you can offer someone is your full attention. When someone speaks to you and you don't interrupt, when you don't rush to respond, when you don't turn their story into yours, something powerful happens. They feel seen, and being seen is one of the deepest human desires. Attractive people don't just hear words. They listen for meaning. They listen for emotion. They listen for what isn't being said. And because of that, people trust them. People open up to them. People remember them, not because they said the most, but because they made others feel like they mattered. The second habit is this: they are comfortable being uncomfortable. Confidence is not loud. It's not arrogance. It's not pretending you have everything figured out. Real confidence is the ability to stand in uncertainty without losing yourself. Most people avoid discomfort. They avoid difficult conversations. They avoid new situations. They avoid anything that might expose their weaknesses. But the problem is, growth lives in discomfort. Attractive people lean into it. They walk into rooms where they don't know anyone. They try things they might fail at. They say what needs to be said even when their voice shakes. And because of that, they expand. They evolve. They become stronger. There's something incredibly magnetic about someone who doesn't run from challenges. Someone who stands firm when things get hard. Someone who says, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. That kind of presence draws people in. The third habit is this: they keep their word. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But think about how rare it is. We live in a world full of broken promises. People say they'll call, and they don't. They say they'll show up, and they cancel. They say they care, but their actions don't match their words. And then there are those few individuals who do what they say they'll do. Every time, they don't overpromise. They don't make excuses. They don't disappear when things get inconvenient. If they commit, they follow through. And over time, something powerful happens. Their words gain weight. Their presence gains credibility. People trust them without question. Trust is attractive. Reliability is attractive. Consistency is attractive. Because in a world of uncertainty, people are drawn to those who are steady. The fourth habit is this: they take responsibility. Blame is easy. It's comfortable. It protects the ego. But it also keeps you stuck. Attractive people don't waste time pointing fingers. When something goes wrong, they ask a different question. They ask, what could I have done better? Not because everything is their fault, but because they understand something most people don't. Responsibility gives you power. The moment you take ownership, you take control. Instead of waiting for circumstances to change, you change your response. Instead of hoping others will improve, you improve yourself. And there's something incredibly compelling about someone who doesn't hide behind excuses. Someone who stands tall and says, that's on me, I'll fix it. It shows strength. It shows maturity. It shows integrity. And people are drawn to that kind of character. The fifth habit is this: they don't chase validation. This one is difficult because we all want to be liked. We all want approval. It's human. But there's a difference between appreciating recognition and needing it to define your worth. Most people shape their behavior based on what others will think. They filter their words. They adjust their personality. They seek approval before they take action. And in doing so, they lose themselves. Attractive people don't do that. They know who they are. They know what they stand for. And they don't compromise that just to fit in. That doesn't mean they're rigid or closed off. It means they're grounded. They're secure enough to be themselves, even if it's not popular. And that kind of authenticity is rare. It's refreshing. It's powerful. It's attractive. Because when someone is comfortable in their own skin, it gives others permission to be the same. And the sixth habit, the one that ties everything together, is this: they focus on becoming, not appearing. Most people are focused on how they look, how they're perceived, how they come across in the moment. But attractive people focus on who they are becoming over time. They invest in their growth. They read. They learn. They reflect. They challenge their own beliefs. They put in the work when no one is watching. They're not trying to impress you today. They're building a version of themselves that will naturally inspire you tomorrow. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to be attractive and start trying to be better, you become more attractive than you ever could have imagined. Because people can feel the difference. They can feel when something is forced. And they can feel when something is real. And real is what lasts. Now here's the part that matters most. None of these habits require talent. None of them depend on where you were born, how you look, or what you have. They are choices. Daily choices. To listen instead of speak. To face discomfort instead of avoid it. To keep your word even when it's hard. To take responsibility even when it hurts. To stand in your truth even when it's uncomfortable. To grow even when no one is watching. And the more you practice these habits, the more they become part of you. Not something you do, but something you are. And when that happens, attraction is no longer something you chase. It's something you carry. It's in the way you walk into a room without needing to prove anything. It's in the way you make people feel heard without trying. It's in the way you handle challenges with calm and clarity. It's in the quiet confidence of knowing who you are. That's what draws people in. Not perfection, not performance, not pretense, but presence. So if you want to become more attractive, don't start with the mirror. Start with your habits. Because the way you live your life every single day is the most powerful signal you send to the world. And the world is always watching. Not what you say, not what you claim, but who you consistently choose to be. Mystery grows when you stop explaining everything and start embodying it. Because the moment you feel the need to explain yourself constantly, something subtle begins to weaken. Not in how others see you first, but in how you see yourself. You start to rely on words to create an image, instead of letting your actions define your reality. You begin to fill every silence, justify every move, defend every decision. And in doing so, you remove something powerful, something rare, something deeply attractive. Space. Attraction needs space. It needs room for curiosity. It needs the unknown. When everything is explained, when every thought is verbalized, when every intention is clarified before it's even felt, there's nothing left for people to discover. And discovery is what creates connection. Think about the people who leave a lasting impression on you. It's rarely the ones who talk the most. It's rarely the ones who tell you exactly who they are, over and over again, trying to convince you. It's the ones who show you. The ones who live in alignment with their values so clearly that they don't need to announce them. They don't say they're disciplined. You see it in how they show up. They don't say they're confident. You feel it in how they carry themselves. They don't say they're focused. You notice it in what they ignore. There's a quiet power in that kind of presence. And it comes from restraint. Restraint is not weakness. It's not holding back because you're afraid. It's choosing not to reveal everything because you don't need to. It's understanding that not every thought deserves to be spoken. Not every plan needs to be shared. And not every emotion needs to be displayed in its rawest form. Most people overshare because they're seeking reassurance. They want validation. They want someone to tell them they're on the right path. And so they talk, they explain, they repeat themselves, hoping that if they say it enough times, it will become real. But attractive people move differently. They act first, they become first, and then if necessary, they speak. And even when they speak, there's a calm certainty behind their words. There's no rush, no urgency to be understood immediately. Because they trust that over time, their consistency will speak louder than anything they could ever say in a moment. There's something incredibly magnetic about someone who doesn't feel the need to prove themselves in every conversation. Someone who can sit in silence without discomfort. Someone who can let a moment breathe instead of rushing to fill it. Silence, when used with intention, becomes a signal. It shows confidence. It shows control. It shows that you're not dependent on constant feedback to feel secure. And in that silence, people start to lean in. They start to wonder. They start to observe more closely. They start to pay attention to the details you don't point out. And that's where mystery lives, not in hiding who you are, but in revealing it slowly, naturally, through what you do. There's a difference between secrecy and mystery. Secrecy is about concealment. It's about building walls, avoiding vulnerability, keeping people at a distance out of fear. Mystery is different. Mystery is openness without overexposure. It's allowing people to see you, but not handing them the entire story all at once. It's letting your identity unfold over time instead of presenting it as a finished product in the first meeting. Because the truth is, you are not a finished product. And when you try to define yourself too quickly, too clearly, too completely, you limit your growth. You put yourself in a box, and then you feel the need to defend that box every time life challenges it. But when you focus on embodying instead of explaining, you stay fluid. You stay adaptable. You stay grounded in who you are becoming, not trapped in who you once said you were. And people can feel that. They can feel when someone is evolving in real time. When someone is not performing a fixed identity, but living a dynamic one. And that creates a different kind of attraction. A deeper one. One that isn't based on first impressions, but on sustained intrigue. You don't need to tell people you're growing. They'll notice it in how you respond to situations that used to shake you. You don't need to announce your boundaries. They'll feel them in what you tolerate and what you walk away from. You don't need to explain your standards. They'll see them in the choices you make, the people you surround yourself with, the opportunities you accept and the ones you decline. This is where embodiment becomes your language, and it's a language that doesn't require translation. Because actions are universal. Anyone can say the right words. Anyone can craft the perfect sentence, the perfect explanation, the perfect image. But not everyone can live in alignment with those words consistently. And that's why actions carry more weight, because they require effort, they require discipline, they require integrity. When you embody something, you're not just saying it, you're proving it over and over again in ways that can't be faked for long. And over time, people stop listening to what you say altogether. They start watching what you do. They trust the pattern, not the promise. There's a moment in every interaction where people make a quiet decision about you. Not based on one sentence, not based on one impression, but based on the accumulation of small signals. How you react when things don't go your way. How you treat people when there's nothing to gain. How you handle pressure, uncertainty, disagreement. And the more consistent those signals are, the less you need to explain anything, because your behavior becomes predictable in the best way, not boring, not repetitive, but reliable, and reliability creates comfort, and comfort creates connection. But here's where it becomes even more powerful. When you stop explaining everything, you also stop seeking permission. You stop asking for approval before you make a move. You stop waiting for someone to validate your choices before you act on them. You stop looking around to see if what you're doing makes sense to everyone else. And that shift changes everything. Because now your decisions come from within. They're not reactions to external expectations. They're reflections of internal clarity. And that clarity shows up in how you move through the world. You walk differently. You speak differently. You decide differently. There's less hesitation, less second guessing, less need to justify. And people notice that, not consciously at first, but they feel it. They feel the certainty. They feel the groundedness. They feel the absence of desperation for approval. And that absence is what creates presence. Because when you're not focused on being understood by everyone, you become more aligned with yourself. And alignment is attractive. It's attractive because it's rare. Most people are divided. Part of them wants one thing, another part wants something else. They say one thing, do another. They believe one thing, act in contradiction. And that internal conflict leaks into their behavior. It shows up as inconsistency, as hesitation, as over-explanation. But when you're aligned, you don't need to over-explain, because your words and your actions are pointing in the same direction. And when that happens, people don't question you as much. They don't feel the need to analyze every statement, every decision, every move. They trust the coherence. They trust the pattern. And trust, once again, becomes the foundation of attraction. But there's another layer to this. When you stop explaining everything, you also start listening more, because you're not waiting for your turn to speak. You're not preparing your next justification. You're not thinking about how to present yourself in the best possible way in every moment. You're present, fully present. And presence changes the quality of every interaction. You notice more. You understand more. You connect more deeply. And people can feel that level of attention. They can feel when someone is truly there with them, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. And that feeling is rare. Because most interactions today are filled with distraction. People are half listening, half thinking, half present. But when you show up fully, without the need to constantly insert yourself into the conversation, you create space for something deeper to happen. And that depth is attractive because it's not common. It stands out, not loudly, not aggressively, but quietly, consistently. And over time, it builds a kind of reputation. Not the kind that's based on what people say about you when you're in the room, but the kind that's based on how people feel after they've been around you. They may not be able to explain it clearly. They may not have the exact words. But they'll remember the feeling of calm, the feeling of clarity, the feeling of being understood without being judged. And that feeling becomes your signature. Not something you advertise, something you embody. And once you reach that point, you don't need to control how people perceive you. Because perception becomes a byproduct of your presence, not a goal you're constantly chasing. And that frees you. It frees you from the pressure of maintaining an image. It frees you from the anxiety of being misunderstood in every moment. It frees you from the endless cycle of explaining, correcting, clarifying. You become more selective with your words, more intentional, more precise. And because of that, when you do speak, it matters more. People listen more closely. They pay attention. Because they know you're not speaking just to fill space. You're speaking because there's something worth saying. And that contrast, the balance between silence and speech, between action and explanation, is where real influence lies. Not in volume, but in weight. Not in frequency, but in impact. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. You stop feeling the urge to explain every decision. You stop feeling uncomfortable in silence. You stop feeling responsible for making sure everyone understands you all the time. You accept that not everyone will, and that's okay. Because the right people, the ones who are paying attention, the ones who value depth over noise, they will see you. Not because you told them who you are, but because you showed them. Consistently, quietly, powerfully, and in that space between what is said and what is shown, mastery continues to grow.